Hello, testing one, two. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Sounds good. All right. Welcome to a Saturday Night Live. And I ain't talking about that Saturday Night Live, which back in the days when I was in prison, that Saturday Night Live used to be funny. I remember when I was in the cell block in WCI, a lot of people used to look forward to that Saturday Night Live. Because they had, I forgot some of the funny skits that they had. They had the night at the Roxbury, where they would come on the night for the night at the Roxbury, and we was in the cell block. And the way the cell block was lined up is there was like 3 TVs, if I could remember right, on the cell block. And each cell, some of the cells were right in front of the TV, so you could lay in your bunk and watch the TV directly. But some of the cells were kind of catacorner to the TV, so you would have to almost sit up on your bunk, and some of them you literally had to stand in your cell kind of to watch the TV. And I was in a cell to where you could still see the TV, but I wasn't right in front of it, so I had to kind of stand up to see the TV. And every Saturday Night Live was a big deal, and people would do whatever they could to watch Saturday Night Live. It would go crazy inside the cell block. Especially when some of those skits would come on. Tukums the driving cat, dudes, but I don't know what it was, but dudes in prison like silly stuff, and they would cut up when Tukums the driving cat. That cat would be driving like this. Now cat memes are everywhere, and when in the 1990s, you wouldn't think that the cat memes and the cat popularity on the internet would be so big as it is. But back when we was in prison and Tukums the driving cat came on Saturday night, and he was driving that cat, he would always get in the wreck. And that was the funniest part. For some reason, convicts thinks it's hilarious when tragedy happens. And every time Tukums would wreck that car, dudes would just laugh up a storm. But if you've seen in the chat, I put, have you ever heard of this book, Behold the Pale Horse? This is what I decided to talk about tonight on this live, was this book right here. Here it is, right in front of my face. This book was first introduced to me as a 19-year-old inside the Louisiana Department of Corrections. I had heard about it when I was in Hunt Correctional Center going through diagnostics by some convicts. And when I got up the road to Wade Correctional Center, which is in North Louisiana, I heard about it from other convicts, but nobody had a copy. It wasn't until I got to Allen Correctional Center where I met a Muslim who actually had a copy of the book in print. He had each one of the pages printed out, and so he would loan me pages to read. So he would give me printout pages. He's like, "Oh man, this book's really hard to get, man. Not everybody got a copy of this book." And I got to think I was 19 years old, and this Muslim guy, he was I'm just guessing, he had to be in his 40s. He was an older dude, and he was the one. Me and him read portions of this book and spoke back and forth. So I didn't read the book in this form. I read it in printed out form, where somebody just printed out copies, and that's what I got. But if you know anything about Milton William Cooper, he is a very controversial figure. But inmates and convicts love this dude. And lately, I was thinking to myself, do I want to go back and revisit this book? Do I want to go back and reread this book? And that's where I am now. And so when I was in Barnes and Nobles, and I'm pretty sure we was in Barnes and Nobles, and I wasn't sure they was going to have it, because you know how books can be. They can get controversial, and people will be like, "Oh man, you shouldn't have that book." You know what I mean? It needs to be on a what they call it, a book ban. You ever seen, man, I've seen these memes where people got, "Oh, these books are banned," but every time I go on Barnes and Nobles, I can find every one of the so-called banned books. Well, I can still find this book in Barnes and Nobles. I think that's where I got it, and it was just a couple months ago I got it. I haven't started rereading it, but I'm going to reread it. He has some interesting topics such as UFOs. And so I wanted to go back and read this book and see if I can remember what I read, because it's small print, and it's really, you got to really be into it to want to read it. And the sad part about Milton William Cooper is that he died the way he lived, trying to expose things. And I'm sitting here looking at this book, and I'm thinking, Do I really want to jump into this again? But I'm going to do it. And something I want to do on my channel is discuss books that we talked about while we were in prison. And Behold the Pale Horse, I feel like it's a really good book to start. There's no way we're going to talk about this book in one setting, and we're not even talking about specific chapters right now. We will on the Pen and the Shank. But I just wanted to give an introduction and a live and say, hey, look, I think we're going to visit this book on my channel. And I would, if anybody in the community is interested, they should go get a copy of it, read it, so we can all follow along whenever I decide to start covering chapter by chapter. It has a lot of chapters in it. And I'm going to read some of the chapters to you to show you what kind of stuff we're talking about here. Let's see. Hold on. Chart, table of contents. I'm at the chapters. All right. Chapter 1, Silent Weapons for Quiet War. Chapter 2, Secret Societies and the New World Order. Chapter 3, Oath and Initiation of an Unidentified Secret Order. Chapter 4, Secret Treaty of Verona. Chapter 5, Goodbye USA, Hello New World Order. Chapter 6, HR 4079 and FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. Chapter 7, Anti-Drug Abuse Act 1988. Chapter 8, Are the Sheep Ready to Shear? Chapter 9, Anatomy of an Alliance. Chapter 10, Lessons of Lithuania. Chapter 11, Coup de Grace. Chapter 12, Secret Government. Chapter 13, Treasons in High Places. And Chapter 14, A Proposed Constitutional Model for the New States of America. Chapter 15, The Story of Jonathan May. Chapter 16, Documentation, U.S. Army Intelligence Connections with Satanic Church. So it's got some very interesting stuff. And one of the most interesting things that I found out is when I was young, being a teenager in prison, going into my early 20s, was talking about UFOs. I was just interested in UFOs. And Milton William Cooper was in the Navy. So when he was in the Navy, he saw a lot of things. And supposedly that's where they saw UFOs. And there's a lot of interesting topics when it comes to UFOs. I don't know what you think about UFOs, but I think they have a lot of interesting facts and interesting information on UFOs. So my thought process is, why not hear the people out who are supposedly knowledgeable in the field of UFOs, and they have researched the matter completely, and they continue to research the matter because their interest in it is high. So if there's a possibility that there's UFOs and that there really was an Area 51, I feel like it's something that not just the powerful elite should know about, but everyday people should know about UFOs and Area 51 if it exists, right? That's what I think. That's what I believe. So, it's something that, we're going to read about and talk about. And that's something I wanted to share, So, if you watch this during the live, or if you watch it later, you can type in the comments if you're interested in learning more about this particular book. And we'll read passages from the book, and then maybe we'll revisit, the man's life himself. And even though it's controversial, there's still always lessons to learn, that just because somebody's controversial doesn't mean that there's still something we can't learn from them, no matter who they are, whether you agree or disagree with them. There's always something interesting about somebody's life. So that's what I wanted to share. And another book I wanted to share with y'all right now. Hold on, let me grab it. Is this fun little book. It's called Water at Catfish Bend. I found this book when I was out doing yard sales, and I just bought a box full of miscellaneous junk. This book was in it. I went to throwing stuff away, and I said, wait a second, I'm familiar with that book. This book actually takes place down here in Louisiana, where I'm from. It takes place on the Mississippi River, right outside of Plaquemines, down there, all the way down almost in the Gulf of Mexico. They call it the end of the world. So there are parts of Louisiana down by Venice, Louisiana. When you keep driving, you won't be able to drive no more because there ain't no more land. It's the Gulf of Mexico or the Gulf of America, whatever one you want to call it. And this little book is a fun little book. It's called High Water at Catfish Bend. And it's got these caricature characters, a fox, a snake, a raccoon, a rabbit, and a frog. And they all wind up on an island together. A floating island, should I say. It was a floating island because the Mississippi River floods, and it floods the whole city. I think it goes all the way to New Orleans, and it floods in New Orleans, but it's a fun little read. And one thing I want to do on the Pen and the Shank is I want to talk about books. And I know my lighting's not good. This is my second live. I don't know if you watched my other live. I did it yesterday, and it was a test run, and I thought it went good. The only way to figure this stuff out is to jump in the water. So I would just encourage anybody to jump in the water, just figure it all out, That's what I'm doing now. And this is a fun book, man. So instead of throwing it away, I read it. I would assume that this would be considered a child's book back in the day. And it's written by Ben Lucian Berman, and it's illustrated by Alice Caddy. And it's got really some fun little stuff. Let me see if I can find one of let's see. The animations that she drew. She drew some fun stuff. It's just different style of artwork. Yes, here's one thing that's cool. In New Orleans, they have what you call a second line. And so you can see the second line right there. Right there. Yep. There's the second line. So they're walking in second line. It's a fun little book. Let's see. They got the snake, the character snake. I don't remember. I read this book like 2 years ago, and I already don't remember the name. Oh, Judge Black. That's right. That was the judge, and he was the I forgot what character he was. But it's a fun little book. So, in other words, I don't just want to cover controversial topics on the Pen and the Shank and controversial books that hold a lot of gravity and heavy weight. But sometimes I just want to cover books that are fun, like High Water at Catfish Bend. So I want to recommend that one as well. Anyway, I don't know what you got going on tonight, but whatever it is, you know what I mean? I think it would be good if you could incorporate reading. I think we all got to incorporate reading more. We don't read enough as a society. There's this YouTube, about a 30-minute video that I don't remember who did it, but this guy did it. It was the most interesting thing, and it was about reading and how much you could read if you actually read. If you read 10 minutes a day, you'd be surprised at how many books you could read in a year. 10 minutes. So imagine if you read 30 minutes a day, how many books you could read, how much more knowledgeable you would be and more informed you would be. Reading is a good thing. I don't read enough. And the reality is I read more than a lot of people, but I can read more, right? Hey. That's just my thoughts on it, I think people should read more. I don't think we read enough as a society. Yep. And I'm drinking this, I'm all amped up on it's the holiday season. I got this Coca-Cola. It's got that creamy vanilla, holiday vanilla. And I wanted to test out this Saturday night live, going live. And so this is the first time we did it, and we're going to do this again. And I'm glad I was able to put this out. And I hope that this information is able to help some people. And I hope that if you watch this, you give me a like and a thumbs up and subscribe and hit the bell notification to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison related channel experience on YouTube. Hands down. I'm going to cover different stuff. We're not going to just talk about, being the hardest dude on the cell block and poking our chest out and who fights who and who's the toughest gang. That's not what's going on this channel. It's more informative and it's more entertaining. It's more challenging to the mind. It's more interesting. I want to get some laughs along the way too. And I want to cover not just trending crime and prison topics, but I want to do the more obscure ones that they're not talking about. And so that's what you're going to get on the Pen and the Shank. But I just want to say thank you to anyone who tapped into the live tonight. And like I said, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And thanks and have a good night. Peace.